And we're live from Airthings HQ here in Oslo, Norway. Welcome everyone that's joining us for yet another webinar about Airthings for Business. I'm the webinar host today. My name is Martin McGloin, and the star of the hour, the product manager himself, Mr. Mikael. How are you doing?
Mr. Mikael, I'm doing great, thank you. I'm actually not that far away from you. I can almost see you around the corner, yeah. But we're in the same building.
On the same floor, in the same building. Just we thought for echo and production value, it's better that we're separating in two different rooms. But let's see, we've got the people still joining this webinar. I'm very curious to see who's joining us this time. So we do have a really exciting chat feature on the side here. So maybe as a good start, while we let some more people join us, can we have a little message? Where are people joining us from? Who's with us here today? Are you able to give us a little peek? The chat is here on the side. Here is the chat. Oh, William is on the chat. Joni is on the chat. Let's see, they're writing an essay, I think. Denver, Colorado, DMI, Charleroi. Okay, a lot of people from the US. Good morning.
Yeah, wow. Early for some.
Do we have any Europeans? Anyone from the other side of the Atlantic with us as well? Maybe someone from Asia. Joe Cross from Netherlands, good day. Ines from Spain, hello. And Matilda from Oslo, Norway. You must be very close to us, maybe. This is very exciting. We got Sweden, we got Denmark. Oh, Shaulus from Lithuania. Labas.
And Norway as well.
Flere from Norge. Hello, Norge. Very cool. This is exciting. So I think we've gotten quite a lot of people that have joined through. So I think we can give it a little bit of a go through. I have some practical information I want to run through and also give people a little bit more time to join. So I will share the screen and wish you all welcome. We got someone from Pakistan as well. Wow, we have multiple time zones joining us. This is exciting. I'm loving the energy and enthusiasm. Another thing I want to point out also, to really make this a fun webinar for everyone, there is an opportunity to use emojis. So if you have the react button there, you can send through some. If you get really scared or excited, you can send through this one. If we happen by accident to say something funny, you can react with this one as well. And there are a couple of other emojis as well. So please feel free to chat or react during the webinar. This is a safe area. We will be recording the webinar as well. So if you do have to go out for a little period of time or miss the ending and you're really excited about the ending, you can rewatch it later. It'll be posted on the Airthings YouTube channel. And not only is there a chat, not only is there an emoji opportunity, there's also an opportunity to ask some questions and really create this into something interactive. So there's also a question tab on the bottom right there that you can see, ask a question. So please ask them throughout the webinar. We might pick up some, but we also make sure we save some time at the end to answer those. And I know me and Mikael just had lunch downstairs in the Airthings cafeteria. And as he was coming up, he was whistling a very familiar tune for what he wishes for Christmas. Can you remember what you were whistling, Mikael? All I want for Christmas is a
new LinkedIn contact with
exactly.
More melody. I don't think I can sing it exactly like you do, but very eager to connect with anyone. If you're already using Airthings or if you are curious about it, it's very, very interesting for us to talk to you. So please look me up, or you can also share your interest in the chat, and we will follow up later.
So as we've already alluded to, Mikael is the senior product manager here. He's responsible for pretty much anything you see in the Airthings for Business dashboard. So his team is continuously developing all the dashboard functionality. And please reach out to him if there's any ideas, feedback, thoughts about how we can make it even better for your use cases. And I'm a product evangelist here in Airthings. We assume that everyone's joining us here today have some familiarity, that you already set up some Airthings devices, you already been monitoring your commercial building or your public building with whether it's a school or a kindergarten, and that you have some hands-on experience. So it's not like an intro webinar today. This is probably like shall we say level 2, Mikael?
I think level 2, maybe 2.5 at the end.
2.5, nearly level 3, right? So we really dive into some of the little bit more advanced functionality here today. But for those of you, so we assume you're a bit familiar with the wireless indoor air quality sensors that we provide for commercial and public buildings. And we have installed them in quite a few buildings already. Do you want to do the bragging numbers already?
Yeah, it's good. We have the cheat sheet here, but yes, 7,000 plus buildings are being monitored, and with more than 100,000 devices installed. So quite some scale to our platform these days.
And that's since we launched in mid 2019. So it's been a heck of a journey that we've scaled across the world, even to this case that we're getting now people from Canada and Pakistan joining our webinar here today. The topic for today is how to, and is focusing on energy and energy optimizing your building, particularly in the colder seasons or in the winter seasons. So I'm putting on my thermal underwear here now. It's getting cold here in Norway, and I think a lot of other places around the world. And what we want to dive into is how to leverage your Airthings devices and sensors to help optimize your building in this time of year. And then, Mikael, there's really like 2 core aspects that we're going to look on today.
Yeah. So we're going to be looking at the 2 main things that are kind of the most, I wouldn't say low-hanging fruits, because it takes some effort and some knowledge and motivation to do it, but the lowest hanging fruit, or the first thing to start with. So we're going to be looking at everything related to temperature, mostly heating, since that's kind of the season here in Europe now, which is a huge source of energy spend. And then we're going to be looking into ventilation, which, in essence is a bit about temperature as well, but especially in the cold season, you're moving all this cold air into your building, and it's very expensive to heat it all up. So we're going to be looking at how you can kind of assess, are you overdoing it, or you could be underdoing it as well, but mainly looking into, are you optimizing these 2 things, and what can you do about it too.
And I think the core product vision idea behind Airthings, and one of the kind of slogans we have here, is making the invisible visible, really giving you the data to optimize your building, not while being blind. So we will talk about like the first 2 parts here. We'll look at temperature, essentially heating, and ventilation. It's kind of the easy starts, the easy tweaks you can do in the building. And then in the last part there, optimizing your building is, okay, once we've done the low-hanging fruits of optimizing your existing building systems, whether it's your heating on a building level, zone or room level, or same also with ventilation, we will then look at how you can leverage the insights and the data that you've seen to inform bigger investments or upgrades to your spaces, whether that is upgrading your BMS system, retrofitting and installing VIV or demand control ventilation throughout your building, or even looking at how you can demand control your heating as well. So we'll talk about some of those integrations, but the main focus will be practical applications within the dashboard and key features to help you optimize what you already have. So I think we should just dive straight to it. I think a lot of people are probably itching to see some hands-on functionality, but also we want to really encourage some discussion here and really make sure that we've fine-tuned this based on your interests and questions. We have a small motivation now that we're coming into the festive seasons. I have with me here a special edition Black Wave Plus. So not only do you need to monitor your Airthings at work, in your school, office, or kindergarten, but also at home. So we will take one of the questions that get asked today and send you one of these sensors that you can have at home as well. It's a special edition Black Wave Plus. So monitor your air quality at home as well. So I think with that little motivation, everyone hopefully found the question tabs. We can move on to the first part of the webinar, which is looking at the heating part, leveraging Airthings for Business in the winter seasons. And then we're essentially talking about optimal temperature control, right, Mikael?
Yes. So on the surface, it's pretty simple. It's is it too hot or too cold? That's kind of what we're going to be looking into. A bit more advanced than what's going on outside opening hours at the end. But it's also, I think it's important to mention that I'm personally no facility management and heating and cooling systems expert. I develop software products, but what I'll be talking about is what I've seen quite a few examples of that our customers are doing. And it's very inspiring to see not only that customers are monitoring and kind of looking at the data, but using it and then acting on it in a more proactive way. So I've seen this being done. It's not something I'm making up, and it's something that's possible for everyone who has the data and the motivation to do it.
And I think when we do product management or product development, start with the questions, the problems in mind. So when we're delving into this now, Mikael's going to start sharing his screen now and going into the Airthings for Business dashboard. It's, am I maintaining the optimal temperature in my building? Are there any spaces that are too warm or too cold in my building? And am I adapting my heating to the schedule of my building? That's the kind of questions that we want to help you answer by analyzing the sensor data that you're gathering from across your building. So with that, we have these 3 features, and let's jump straight into how we can aggregate data, and it could be hundreds of sensors in the building, aggregate that into an IAQ report, but really is like the overall pulse of your building. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to you, Mikael.
Thank you very much. So I'll be going through a few examples. It's different ways of achieving more or less the same thing, but it's a few different takes. So we have on the right there, you can see I have this reports functionality, and I think this is kind of the bread and butter of the Airthings dashboard. It's been with us for a while and it's being used a lot. And in this example, I'm going to be looking at the indoor air quality report. And this is a report that will just take all the data in the building and spit out trends and aggregations. So you can notice here at the top that it says opening hours, and that's quite important for this and also for other reports, because in most buildings, it's very relevant to differentiate what's going on when the building is in use, when there's people in the building, if it's an office, school, or similar, and when the building is basically empty, not in use at night, in the weekends, typically. So if you haven't set that up, that's a very important thing to set up. But assuming we've done that, you see this building, it's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday to Friday. So I'll select all devices. I want to look at everything that's going on in this building. You can select a lot of sensor types. For this example, I'm only interested in temperature, since that's what we're looking at. So I'll deselect these others. And then I want to look at a significant enough period of time. So I'll be looking at, we're November, almost over, in Christmas is coming, but not yet. But we can look at November as an example. And I'll click Generate Report. And now it has more or less crunched all data in this building in terms of temperatures in November. So I think I'll jump directly to this. I think you refer to this as the pulse, Martin. So you see this kind of average temperature across the whole building going up when the building is.
I kind of imagine this as an EKG monitor and a hospital next to a patient in the hospital, right? This essentially gives you the pulse, is there a life signal of a building, and this is optimal. And the great charts here really shows you why it's important to put in those opening hours as a metadata about your building, because it shows you here we actually have pretty optimal heating during, like, the temperature is rising during the operating hours when people are present, and then we have a much lower temperature outside opening hours. It reduces at night, reduces during the weekend when there are no people present, and that's really what you want to see. What I've seen very often as kind of a not so healthy patient is when it's flatlining, when you have a flat constant temperature. That means that your heating is not necessarily demand control or adapting to the actual usage of the building, and that might be an opportunity to optimize and save a few percentage of energy, particularly at night and weekends.
Definitely. So if we move beyond that pulse, which is looking pretty good in our office building, we can move down and see kind of the summary of each individual space in the building for this period of time. And this, of course, it depends a bit. Like for some people, you want to maintain a temperature maybe around 22, 23 Celsius. Sorry, Americans, I can't do the Fahrenheit in my head, but you'll have to bear with me. But of course, this depends a bit. Some maintain a lower temperature and higher temperature. It also depends a bit on the type of the building. But anyway, depending on the ideal temperature you want to maintain if you're in your building, you want to be looking at these averages and also the lowest and highest measurements. And of course, what you're generally looking for here is high temperatures, high averages, high, low, and highest measurements, because that will give you an indication that maybe some of these rooms are actually overheated. You should investigate that further. So this building is looking pretty okay. We actually have this one room. It's called Las Vegas. It's a meeting room, a big meeting room that has been very cold. So we can just jump into that, and you see it has actually quite some low temperatures, both within opening hours for a certain week and outside. So this is maybe something worth looking into, because it seems to be a bit cold. That's probably quite energy efficient though, but maybe at the expense of comfort. And on the other end, we can look into some of these rooms that are maybe a bit warm, like almost 24 degrees Celsius in average. That's quite warm in this meeting room. And you can see it was, that seemed to be have been going on until the 17th. Now it looks a bit better. But again, depending on what level of temperature you want to maintain, this might be worth investigating further. Maybe this is a room that is being overheated a bit. So that's kind of the basics. And the great thing about reports as well is you can easily download them as PDFs and share them. And that gives you kind of this artifact. You can send it via email or however you want, and share it with people who might be interested or need convincing that this is worth investigating further.
And that's a general, like the IAQ reports generally, right? If you include the other parameters as well, it's downloading that PDF is probably like the most powerful communication tool to communicate the indoor environment you're creating in your space to tenants or even compliance authorities. So some countries you have to actually document your indoor air quality in a school or kindergarten. And this has been designed to kind of satisfy those reporting requirements. It's a great reporting tool. And also, as Mikael shows here, use this as an aggregation tool to get a sense overall of your building, give you a nice 360 view of your building. Shall we move on? This is my, the next feature has a very cumbersome name. It's called time over threshold. We struggle a bit to name this in the right way. So if anyone has a good idea for how we can name this better, please give us some input. But essentially, it is giving us some time over a certain threshold that we defined. And in this case, it's going to be temperature.
Yes. So I'll be looking at the same period of time. So this is if you have to go into a building and then you get to this Insights tab. And then again, this is a feature that works across measurement types, but we want to be looking at temperature. So what this feature in essence does is that it gives you a bit more flexibility. So you can kind of define the parameters, what's above and below the desired levels. And then you can basically say, oh, in this building, you know what, anything above 22 degrees Celsius is a bit too warm. So we don't want to have it warmer than that. And okay, below 19 is still too cold. So it gives you a bit more flexibility, and then it aggregates basically every individual sample in terms of amounts of time that has been above that threshold. So this gives you kind of an indication in this building as a total. You can also click individual days, see specifically what rooms are being affected. But I think maybe more efficiently, you can go up to the top. Now we're looking at the trend over time. But if you click this total by device, you will basically get the list of rooms, top to bottom, that have been above 22 degrees.
So the toggle that Mikael did there, if anyone's used Excel before and you've done a pivot table, essentially that's what's happening. Okay, you're pivoting the table, and essentially you're then being able to see, okay, instead of you're focusing on each room and summarizing how much time they've been on, or the time over that threshold that they've been exposed to. So if you have a certain set, essentially now you get your to-do list, right, Mikael?
Yes, essentially. So in this view, I changed it to 23 degrees now just to filter it a bit better. But you can see that there's one room that's been cold quite a lot, the Las Vegas room we also saw in the IAQ report. So that's worth looking into. And then these other rooms, the no content meeting room, that's the name of a meeting room, hardware area, these rooms are also indicating that they've been above 23 degrees for quite some time. You see here almost regularly every day it's above. And
Wow.
of course, assuming you want to maintain a temperature not above that threshold, this gives you a way to look at it. I'm getting some comments here about it wasn't my intention to dismiss Fahrenheit. So you can actually set this yourself. Obviously, in Norway, we use Celsius, as does most of Europe.
Yeah.
But you can.
I was going to let's show and maybe do the next feature in Fahrenheit, because we do have a big audience in the US as well, so we need to be spread out. So let's see if we manage to change the units, and can you run the last feature on temperature in Fahrenheit, Mikael?
Let us do that, so we are not being too biased towards the European standards. So if you go into your profile settings here, you can see this icon on the right. You get your email, and there's lots of stuff here, but user settings includes different unit settings. So for temperature, you have two options: Celsius, which I have been using, and Fahrenheit. So you simply just switch, save those changes, and that should be reflected in the IAQ reports and also in the feature we were looking at now. So you can just briefly go back and double check that this is working. So now
I'm a bit worried now, Mikael, that maybe we have some scientists with us that will start demanding Kelvin as well.
Yeah, let's cross that bridge when we get there. But now you see the same as we looked at before, but now the options are in Fahrenheit. So I'll jump to the last example. This is slightly more getting a bit more into advanced features, because we've been talking a lot about opening hours. Martin has been talking about the pulse. So if you click this insights, we actually have this thing we refer to as energy insights. We want to expand on this. There's more coming. But for now, we have this thing, we call it the heating and cooling insights. And this basically tells you where the building may be heating or cooling too much outside of opening hours. So this is slightly more advanced. So what this does is that it's looking at the opening hours, it's looking at temperature. There's also a comparison done against the outdoor temperature. And then this basically triggers an event saying, hey, we think you are heating too much, maybe at night typically, or in the weekend. So here you see overheating for a day. This means that this was the weekend, so the building was not in use. And the algorithm here is picking up that, hey, there's indications that this building is being heated even though it's closed. And of course, that might be fine. It depends a bit on the building heating system. So you can go in here and see what is happening in these individual rooms. And here you actually see the comparison against the outdoor temperature. So of course, the colder it is outside, the more expensive it is to heat the inside of a building, which is why we're doing that comparison here. So again, I wouldn't do this first. I would look at temperatures in general first. But if you're confident that those are kind of optimized, then it might be time to start getting a bit deeper into what's happening in terms of temperatures at night and in the weekends. Should you be adjusting them by a few degrees, etc.
So we really dwelled into the temperature part of optimizing your building and kind of how to summarize 3 various ways of summarizing that. And now you might go into whether you have a BMS system or you have a local heating central, or you have room control units that you modify the temperature to make sure that you're not overheating, as we saw in some of those rooms that were well above 23 for most of the day, or some of the other rooms that were at times probably too cold for comfort. You also want to make sure that once you make those tweaks that you're certain that you're not making things worse or bad, and be alerted. So if you don't have a good alerting mechanism and kind of give you that confidence, maybe very quickly show the alerts functionality, which I kind of seems like it's a safety brace as you do optimizations, that make sure that you get alerted by your building if something goes awry. I think then we jump over to ventilation.
Yes, do you want me to show that, Martin, or will you?
Yeah, I thought since you had the dashboard open there.
I'll jump back into it. So
I'm going off script now, Mikael. I just realized that this was a good feature to show as well.
I think it's a
maybe expand your menu so it's a bit easier to see on the side there. If you expand the menu, so you see. So we've been inside the buildings menu for most of the time now, and then we go into the alerts,
and then we can set up an alert. And I think This feature, one thing is the feature, but I think you're touching on something very important, which is like, first you're looking at data. So you're kind of figuring out, where could I potentially adjust things? Could I adjust the temperatures in certain sections, etc.? But then, of course, say you do make an adjustment. You go in and you change the heating schedule or set points, etc. Well, then you want to be monitoring if things are going okay. You want to be confident that you're not overdoing it, that it doesn't have a negative effect. So the alerts are a great way to do that. So we can just call it temperature alert. Email is the most common thing. We can select who gets it. Let's see if I can find myself. There's a long list of, there we go. That's me. And then we can also select devices or maybe a specific building. Let's use the building in this case. So if something changes in the building we were looking at earlier, we want to know. We want to look at temperatures, and then we basically want to generate an alert if temperatures are outside a certain range. So that basically means if something is outside the range we set now, you will get an email telling you that, hey, there's something you should look into. Now this is still in Fahrenheit, so it's a bit hard for me to
I think if it were to be 18 degrees, I had to cheat now, Mikael. If I want to have 18 degrees Celsius, it's probably like a lower range. You need 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah. And then 80 is probably good. So with that, so now we kind of showed both the 3 ways to analyze your building, but also one way to monitor that things haven't gone worse once you start making those optimizations within your systems. And let's jump now and look at the second part, which is going to be a bit like, it's a similar kind of tools, but of course we're going to be looking at different parameters. So that's about ventilation. And I want to also, before we dive into this, remind people that there is a questions option. So if there's something that we haven't, that was a bit unclear, or in Richard's case, if you feel that we were a bit dismissive of certain approaches of monitoring certain parameters, please let us know and we can address that. So there's both the chat and the questions. So looking at the ventilation, it's now a lot of the same features here, and we probably can glance over them a bit quicker, but now we essentially, instead of looking at the temperature, we want to be looking at CO2 on the IAQ report. Similar with time over threshold, now we're focusing on the CO2 aspect, so you can modify all of these reports for the other parameters. But then there's a really exciting feature, which for me really tells us the power of having IoT connected devices and being able to gather all this data, is the space utilization, which we launched just a couple of weeks ago, which is essentially the capability of detecting the signal that all of us humans make when we enter into a space, whether it's CO2, temperature, or humidity, aggregating that data with our data science teams here, and actually getting a sense of, okay, which rooms are being used when, and even how many people are within a certain space. And that really gives you the tools to know how to optimize your ventilation system. So the kind of questions that these tools want to answer for you is, am I over or under ventilating my building? Are we running the ventilation systems, particularly if you have a calendar-based systems, are we running these ventilations when there are when people actually need it? Are we adapting our supply based on the actual demand? And are we modulating this in the right way? And what is the ideal schedule for my building if I want to go in and manually set up that schedule within my BMS, if it's not being demand control, but you have a fixed schedule that you're operating? So that's some of the answers that we can help you augment your capabilities within your building using these tools. So shall we jump into it, Mikael?
Yes, I think I'll jump into it. So you'll be seeing some of the same tools I showed earlier, but now we'll be focusing on ventilation. And I think this again is something I see a lot of examples of this when I talk to different customers. So it's quite common actually that there's a lot of potential to optimize ventilation, especially in certain types of buildings with older systems. So there's basically, the main thing is to start with is just, are you ventilating too much? Are you just blowing way too much fresh air into the system? And we'll be using the same tool for this. I'll go through it in detail since we've seen it once before, but selecting the same building, I want to do an IAQ report. And this time I'm not so interested in temperature. I'm mainly interested in CO2, as that is the proxy for ventilation efficiency usually. We'll be looking at the same month, November. This building isn't actually the best example because we have a demand-controlled system. But you see here, it's the same kind of pulse. So you see CO2 levels generally high when there's people in the building within opening hours. If you look at the building average as a whole, and then you also get these averages, lowest and highest measurements within opening hours for each individual space. And this is where you actually want to be looking out. So it's a bit, it's almost the opposite, because Airthings, we've been very air quality focused. It's been all about low CO2 levels. That's good. That means you have lots of fresh air, but it can also mean that you may have too much fresh air. So what you'll be looking for is if everything is in the green, if you're not seeing any CO2 levels, averages, or highest measurements that are above, say, 600, 700, 800 ppm, then that's an indication that you're over-ventilating. Because of course you don't want very high peaks, you don't want CO2 to go very high, at least not frequently, but you also don't want it to always be low, because that's an indication that you're just blowing way too much fresh air into your building compared to how the building is being used. So you see in this building, there's, it's in the yellows and reds in a few rooms. So there's no over-ventilation going on here, but that's how you would use it. And of course, you can download and share it in the same way. But basically,
and you can also, like, if we want to, for example, pick one here that has some really high peaks, for example, Hemsedal, which is one of our meeting rooms.
Yeah, that's usually it's the one that is having issues. You see on the 27th, quite
so even though there was a really high incident there, it doesn't seem like it's a persistent common issue. So it seems like probably at that point it was a bit of a overcapacity in the room. So probably not a major problem that we have to deal with. And it's also worth noting, which probably I assume most of this audience might be familiar with it, but you notice that the lowest CO2 measurements are around 400 ppm, and that's really the lowest you physically will be able to go due to atmospheric CO2. Like the presence of CO2 in the air is around, well, it's still rising, but around 420 ppm at the moment. So really what you're looking at is, if you have too many greens in the highest, it means that you're definitely an indicator that there might be some overventilation going on and an opportunity to optimize.
Yeah, so I think if you use the reception area, if every room was kind of like this, like never above 650, 700, then I would start considering like, okay, maybe we can reduce the
volume of air that you ventilate. Or what we're going to look at next, maybe the schedule in how you ventilate the space as well is an opportunity. So I'm wondering now, in the interest of time, Mikael, we've looked at the IAQ report, time over threshold, just maybe glance over and just see how you can select CO2, and then we jump to space utilization.
You do the same thing for CO2 here, and you would basically be inverting it. So if you don't see anything above, say, 800, you could say 1,000 as well. It depends a bit on your...
Maybe put it on 1,000, which I think is more common threshold to work with, 800.
So you see here, in this building, you see it's regularly slightly above. So no real overventilation here. But if this graph would show nothing, if it was never in any measurements above 1,000 ppm, that would be a clear indication that you're overventilating. And this is a problem we hear customers talk about quite a lot, that they almost by chance, they want to check if air quality is too bad, if there's too high CO2 levels. And then they learn, hey, it's actually too low. It's not a problem at all. And then they can actually use that insight to save energy. But let's jump into something we haven't shown yet, which is the space utilization feature. So this is, it can also be very useful for ventilation optimization, because one thing is how much air is being replaced, but another thing is when is this going on. So typically, a calendar-based system, it might start at 6 a.m. and then it's running until 6 p.m., 12 hours a day. But usually that's not necessary because people won't be arriving that early. So in this case, you can look at this building usage trend, which aggregates the past 4 weeks in terms of presence in your building. And you see here that the gray area indicates opening hours, and you see that in the mornings, so the start here is 7 a.m., but it's rarely a lot of people in our part of the building, at least, until maybe 8 or 9 a.m., not p.m., sorry. So this is an indication that assuming ventilation in this building starts at 7 a.m., that might be a bit too early. It could probably start at 8 a.m., for example. So this is something that it takes a bit of kind of insights to look at it. And also, unfortunately, you can't see the actual time here, but we'll add that soon, I promise. But this is something we know.
I think that's a key part, right? To have the timestamps.
But we know this is something, and again, we see this, especially a lot of our customers, they have old buildings, they have old calendar-based systems, and it's very common that they're either running, say, 12 hours a day, or maybe they're running 24/7. We've seen that as well, and in the weekends as well, even if there's no people. So this can be really useful to adjust the schedule to the actual usage patterns of the building. Another quick thing I want to mention is you also have this calendar heat map, which is more of a daily view. And this can be useful because you see in this building, there's been activity every day. But say if you had 3 days here that were completely blank, there was no activity, well, then there's a very high likelihood that ventilation was running anyway, even though the building was empty. And you can't travel back in time to fix that. But what you can do is tell the people responsible, hey, next time you're going on a field trip, let us know. We'll make sure to put that in the system, and we won't be running the ventilation full speed on those days. So that's also something we see that customers are interested in, because it's a common problem that you don't get that information until it's too late.
And I think you're touching on something that kind of is a nice segue into our last part when we're looking at, okay, how can you integrate? And also one of the questions we're getting here is, how do you integrate the Airthings data to create a demand-controlled system where you're actually controlling your heating and ventilation based on the actual need within your spaces? A lot of the assumptions we've had with the optimizations here is that you probably have what's called a CAV system, like a constant air volume, that you have a calendar-based system that is not based on the demand in the space, but it's what maybe in quotation marks is a little bit of a dumb building where things are fixed in a certain set point. So you have an assumption about what time in the morning do I start ventilating, what time do I turn it off in the evening, and then it essentially goes to a fixed air volume throughout your building. What the space utilization graph tells us is actually gives you some confidence to when should I start it. Maybe you can have like a low volume and a high volume in the middle of the day and then back down to low, and then show that you're not creating a worse indoor environment. The next stage we want to look into is probably like buildings that do have a demand control system, or you would like to upgrade a non-demand control system into something a bit smarter. I'm wondering, should we take, we'll gather up the questions in the end. There's quite a lot of questions. I think a lot of people are also motivated by the price that we have running, but let me just take that a step further, because now we talked about, okay, how can we use the data for you to manually go and optimize your existing building systems? But if you kind of have reached a certain maximum threshold there where you can't really optimize more, and the only way to really get more energy efficiency is to make some capital investments, some bigger investments into your system. We also have some thoughts and input there. And this is what I say, optimize with integrations. The beauty with too often I've kind of worked with building owners or in projects where major renovation projects have been initiated essentially with very little data to back them up. So you kind of started a multi-million-dollar change of air handling units without actually checking, okay, how much of my existing systems can I actually keep using because of the situation in the building? There's very often a lot of functional life left on both the ventilation channels and also the air handling units. But once you have the sensors installed and you see there's a need to optimize in certain spaces, you can also use the Airthings data to power those systems as an input. So I'm going to touch on quickly how you can use Airthings data into a BACnet driven BMS system, specifically how we integrate with Niagara 4 Tridium for your building automation system. We also have some very cool product-specific partnerships and integrations. Here I have the VAV damper, the variable air volume damper. So it's from Lindab, which is a great way to upgrade an existing building that might have a fixed air volume system to demand controlled very cost efficiently with wireless sensors and just some surgical inputs with these VAV dampers. And lastly, there's also this Glamox electric panel heater, which we also integrate with. I think a great source to get some information on all of these kinds of integrations is to go into developer.airthings.com. And I know there was already a question here from Audun about talking about the API. So I'm very happy that he encouraged us to share this in this webinar as well. So developer.airthings.com, there's a lot of resources for, this is probably like more level 4, this is a level 3 webinar. But really looking at various ways you can integrate Airthings data, whether it's through the RESTful API, MQTT, or exploring industry standards like BACnet, Tritium Niagara 4 framework, or product-specific one like here for Glamox. Here's, for example, the data path that we set up for the Glamox heating. It requires, so you can actually use existing ovens and you just replace the control module, which is very small investments, to go from being a fixed temperature to being more demand control and remotely monitored and controlled. Here's a schematic of how the data path is with the Lindab VAV dampers, which is a great solution for existing buildings. So the sensor speaks directly to the VAV damper, and actually you can connect up to 5 Airthings sensors to one VAV damper for a zone control. And that really allows you to modulate the air and also the heating and cooling, because there is a 10-volt output on these controls as well that allows you to control the 0 to 10-volt heating actuator or a cooling actuator. But the beauty here is that also the data goes up to the cloud, so you can remotely monitor your building and the data. So it's a very cool solution and setup that's been kind of built specifically for those thousands of buildings that need to be energy optimized now, particularly with the demands that are coming in Europe and the demands for energy efficiency. So this is kind of a really simple, low efficient way to upgrade older buildings that don't have demand control, might not have a BMS system in place, and get them up to a much more energy efficient heating and cooling system. And I think with that brief little teaser at the end of how to take this one step further, let's summarize some of the questions, because there's quite a lot that have come through, Mikael.
Yes.
Do you want me to go from the bottom here?
Let's go, and then let's try. We can chip in, both of us.
Okay, so we have a question here from William Ball. Is there a way to make an IAQ report for a single day and a specific time frame during that day?
I think currently the minimum is 2 days, but that's something we can look into. Currently the minimum, I think it's 2 days, because the idea is to, if you want to report for a single day, you could kind of just export the graph of the devices itself. But it's
so there is a 2-day minimum on these reports, and that's to give you enough frame to look at it. It'd be very interesting to find out what's the use case to get a single day or a single time frame in that IAQ report, and maybe that's something Mikael and his team can look at if there's a specific reason for it. Another thing I would also want to say is that you should leave the sensors there for a few days before you generate a report, and not just mount them and use those first few days. That's probably not such a big problem for temperature and humidity, but just allowing the CO2 sensor, and if you have radon, allowing the radon sensor to settle. So that was that question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, just want to mention again, just reach out. This is exactly the things we like to discuss with customers a bit more in depth. So feel free to reach out, and happy to talk more about it. Then
I really like this question from Axel here, which is asking, is it possible to get a graph for the outside temperature when looking at the room temperature EKG?
Yes.
As I was referring to the pulse of the building.
Yes. So we are very aware that the outdoor temperature is very relevant when looking at indoor temperatures. So I think my answer here is Not yet, but I would very much like to talk to you as well. We are working on quite a few things, and some of it includes this. So if you want to connect, I can share more about what's coming.
So maybe I upvote to this one as well, because I think that's a really good input. I'd love to have an option in the IAQ report where you could actually also include the outdoor temperature. So maybe to make this happen, Axel, reach out to Mikael on LinkedIn and start pestering him, because I support this feedback and idea. And then we have a question via Ekaterina from Paul. To measure PM, what type of sensor device do you use? So PM is particulate matter, and we do monitor PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5, and particulate matter 1, which are the smallest dust particles in the air. And that is I don't know if when you're asking what kind of Airthings device, that is the Airthings Space Pro, has that sensor in it. I could try and see if I find it up here now. If I open up Airthings Space Pro, there it is. This device here has the PM 2.5 sensor, and as you can see on the list there. Okay, we have a next question. This was the one from Audun, which asked about advertising the API, which I think we've answered. And then we have another question about radon measurements, and this is also from Audun. Radon measurements, I can react on the rise, but the average messes up for instant reaction. And I think this is a very good question, actually, because we need to maybe clarify. I'm sharing my screen, but I disappeared myself.
Now you're back.
Answer this one, or should I take it, Mikael?
No, I can answer it. So yeah, I think the same question here. Not yet. That's the question. But this is also something we are looking into. And if you are interested in radon insights and getting more granularity and maybe also in the context of ventilation, please reach out, and I'm happy to share what we're working on that's not yet publicly available.
Okay, but isn't live radon data available through the API, or am I?
Yeah, that's through the API. You might be able to do it already, yes, but not in the dashboard.
So Audun, we do. I think the use case here for radon. So that's a gas that can be lethal, actually, and we need to control it in buildings. And one of the normal ways to dealing with radon in a building is to ventilate the space. But we don't want to overventilate because we know how costly that is. So we do have actually quite a few buildings that have now integrated with the sensors that we have that have radon, and then they get, instead of the 24-hour average, which is what you see on the dashboard, they get the hourly average more instantaneously. And that is a good enough signal to use to control your ventilation system with. But I think the key feature to use for radon monitoring and radon optimizing your ventilation system is to use the radon report that essentially gives a suggestion for what the ideal calendar is. Because really what we're controlling in radon is a yearly average, not necessarily hour by hour. It needs to be a certain level, but throughout the whole year, within opening hours, it is below the recommended threshold levels. But I think also I would maybe reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can nerd out more with the radon questions for you. And then we have a question here, which might be beyond our capabilities here. Does the home model work with Google or Alexa to ask what the temperature CO levels are at?
I don't know. But this, I guess the home model is referring to the consumer product that's available for direct purchase for consumers.
Yeah. Like, for example, this one here.
Area of expertise.
So I think kind of a keyword here, and this shows us probably like even at home, I have the Airthings for Business products just to make sure that I'm always testing what we are working with. But on the back of this product that we are giving out to one of the lucky questions today, it does say works with Google Assistant and Alexa Home. So that's a good clue, right? And also maybe want to point out that we don't measure CO, but CO2. So we don't do carbon monoxide, only carbon dioxide. But let's talk to the B2C, the consumer product team to make sure we can answer that one correctly. But thank you, Dave. And then we have our friend from Lithuania here. And the question is, will you develop the virus risk API, or better, will you consider integrating reset feature viral index? Since you are reset integrated, it will be very good selling point to customers. So there's maybe quite a few different things here we need to unpack, Mikael.
Yes. So yeah, there's lots of questions there. So I know we have this reset integration, which will feed data into the reset platform, but I'm not super familiar with their viral index. So that's something I would have to get a bit deeper into. But short term, at least, we're not planning on expanding on that integration. But happy to discuss and learn more about it.
And just to clarify, so we talked about the space utilization. That's one of the virtual sensors we have. Essentially, we're taking all the raw sensor data from our devices and trying to tell something else about the space. In this case, how the space is being used or occupied. Another virtual sensor we have is the mold risk indicator, which certain devices have that give you an indicator whether whether you have the environment for mold risk to grow. And the third one is this virus risk indicator, which looking at temperature, humidity, and CO2 to determine what is the risk of airborne transmission of viruses. And that's there's quite a complex model that looks at various different transmission factors and also gives you a breakdown. So I think so Reset, which is a building certification, also has a similar index that gives you a virus risk score, and that's probably what Shaulus here is referring to. And they're not necessarily 100% aligned, but they're based on similar kind of research. I've also looked into the Reset index, which is very well researched as well, and it's a similar kind of research papers that power both of these algorithms. And then, God, we're getting a lot of questions. It's going up here now. Let me do, this is a very good one from Jürgen. Don't you have a simple way to activate, e.g. a ventilation or a lamp if CO2 is too high? I'm an electrician, so I'm thinking of a regular relay. Ooh, I like that product idea. Do you have a feedback to Jürgen, Mikael?
Yeah, I think, of course, it depends what's meant by a simple way. I think the answer currently is, I guess, no, we don't have, you have to do some kind of integration via API or other services. So it requires some technical knowledge, but it's definitely an interesting topic. So, because in the simplest sense, you need some kind of connector.
Yeah, and I think kind of the key thing here, Jürgen, is for the lamp, actually the devices themselves have something called the CO2 alert functionality. So if you go into the Airthings dashboard, you can actually see that yourself, where you can activate the devices that they will start flashing a certain color if you hit a certain threshold. So that's the local functionality on the device. So probably not 100% what you're referring to in terms of getting a relay and activating other products, but you can get the device to flash red if it hits the threshold that you want on the device. And I think the only way to, for example, activate the ventilation system, or in your case also a lamp if you hit a certain threshold, is to use the Airthings API. So go to developer.airthings.com to explore that further. And then we have a very similar one from Richard, and I'm sorry, Richard, about our dismissiveness of Fahrenheit earlier. But here, this is a very good question as well about using this outdoor data. It seems to be a lot of interest about this, Mikael.
Yes.
So what about outdoor humidity and particulate matter in the measurements and the reporting?
Yeah, so this is a very good question. So we have this other report, which is the outdoor report, but of course then you have to do another report, and it doesn't kind of mix the two together. So I think again my answer here is not yet, but this is something we're also very actively exploring. So if you want to learn more and also share your perspectives, very happy to talk to you about it, because it's a very good point, and especially temperature, humidity, and particulate matter, the outdoor and indoor values are very relevant to look at in the same context. So in our upcoming solutions, this is something we are definitely addressing.
Nice. I have another one here from Paul. Is what type of sensor technology do you use for measuring PM? Is it laser? And let me just open up again the same page to show you how to get the answer here now. So I'm on the product page for the Space Pro, and we have all the sensor technologies are listed here for the IAQ sensor sensors here now. I don't know if this is covering the screen now. Minimize the question. Here you go. So for particulate matter, the technology is laser scattering based optical particle counter. So yes, it is laser based, and there's also a fan there to ensure that we have a consistent sampling of the air. That's also why this is using probably the sensor that uses the most energy of all the sensors we have. And there's even more information about the sensor technology if you download the data sheet, which you can see here, product sheet, also on the same page. So my way of finding any of these products quickly is just to Google search Airthings and the name of the product, and then you get very quickly, and you can see the product sheet here. I can open this up as well, and here you have a lot more information about sensor specifications as well. I hope that answered your question, Paul. Let me stop sharing the screen again. Really, really good. Okay, I had a follow-up from Audun about radon, so let's meet up about that. There should be a possibility of getting a responsive enough signal from the API for radon measurements that you can actually use for a control signal. But let's follow that up on email or LinkedIn, and I'll help you out with that. If anyone else has similar concerns about controlling appliances using radon, particularly maybe bring it into your BMS system, also reach out and we can investigate that with you and help you get it set up. It's a really, really, for those that are ventilating to reduce radon, this is a very good way to optimize and reduce your energy consumption. And I think we have time for one last question here from Dave. This is further to Jørgen's questions about a relay. It would be cool to have addressable relays that are programmable to activate based on CO2, temperature, etc. Yeah, okay, it's not a question, sorry, but I raised it as a question, but more a suggestion. That is really, I love this product idea though, Mikael.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept for sure.
Okay. I like how the product manager is not showing interest but not promising anything. We will pass this on also to Joachim, who leads up the overall product development and also looking at the hardware roadmap. But that's definitely something I can see many use cases for. So thank you. And I think with that, we're going to wrap up today's webinar. Thank you for all of the people that stuck with us all the way to the end. This is incredible. We've had actually pretty much full attendance all the way through, so we haven't been too boring, thankfully. It's been fantastic, a lot of questions, a lot of engagement. Hopefully not pure curiosity and not just because one lucky participant today will be getting this special edition Black Wave Plus to use at home. We will do the draw straight afterwards and get in touch with the lucky winner. So I think with that, from Oslo, Norway, should we say thank you and goodbye, Mikael?
I think so. So hoping for some LinkedIn connects and also emails because I have to admit at the end, some of the things we showed was a bit painful because we're working on a lot better solutions for some of these insights. So if you want to look at that and see a bit what's coming in terms of even better temperature and ventilation insights, reach out to me and I'll give you a sneak peek of what's around the corner.
Oh, you're talking of energy optimizing. The lights in my room just turned off as well. So clearly something is. I'm going to share, I've shared both my email and Mikael's email in the chat. I hope that was okay, Mikael. I've shared your email. And have a beautiful Thursday evening wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you in the next webinar.
Definitely. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.
Bye.